Hey guys, welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to give a tutorial on how to 3D model the Kaktus Towers here in Copenhagen by Bjarke Ingels Group. We're going to use Rhino and Grasshopper to create a parametric model that will allow us to recreate the complex shape of the towers. So to get us started, I have a site model here. I have downloaded this from cadmapper.com. You can get a kilometer squared for free here. You don't need this to model the Kaktus Towers, but if you want the context, it's there. And I have modeled also this part of the green strip that the towers sit on myself because it's not included in the CAD mapper file. And we're just going to start off in plan view where I have placed a floor plan of the Kaktus Towers that I've downloaded from this website, worldarchitecture.org. And here you should be able to find a plan drawing of the Kaktus Towers. I think this is from a version of the towers that they did in Esbjerg here in Denmark. But this will be good enough to get us started. So what I'm going to do is place a point variable, and we will build up from here. And I'm just going to make a plane to give an orientation to the building, and then I'm gonna make this plane sort of rotate on the XY axis so that we can rotate the building sort of into place. So I'll make a slider for 360 and I'll set the angle to degrees. So this will be our only input for the building. And to start giving it some shape, I'm going to place a polygon component, and we're going to plug our plane in here into the plane input. And the Kaktus Towers is a hexadecagon, so it's a 16-sided shape. I'm going to make this range a little bit higher just for fun, so we can add extra segments later. That's the beauty of parametric modeling. And I'm going to set it to 16 and plug it in to the segments, number of segments input. Now our building, if you measured off the plan and you scaled it correctly using the scale bar, the building will be around 24 meters in diameter. So about 12 in radius. I'm going to create a little variable here called building radius. And we're going to put it here. And now we have, should be able to see a shape, 16-sided shape for our tower. So I'll just rotate this sort of approximately into place, aligning with the image below. And now we're going to make some rectangles for our sort of square balcony area. And to do this, we're going to plug in our plane again, but the rectangle takes a domain. So going to construct a domain, and this is sort of a range of numbers. And what we're going to do is start off in the negative and finish in the positive. So I'll take a negative component here, and then I'm gonna create a little relay here and plug that into the B, the end of the domain. And if we now put this in to the X and Y of our rectangle, we should see a square, sort of representing the balcony areas in this plan below. And what I'm gonna do now is create an extra one for later, because we're gonna have two squares for the balcony. One is gonna be for calculating where the balcony walls should be, which kind of go in and out to create that cactus shape. And then we're going to use another for the actual balcony itself, the 3D object. So I'm going to add some extra radius on the actual balcony itself. I'm going to call it extra balcony radius. And let's just give it 200 mil for now. I'm going to add that onto this radius number. So giving us 1200 mil. And I'm just going to copy this. And I'll move everything up a little bit. It's easier to understand. And so our second square should be a little bit larger to create our balcony later. This is our polygons that will start us off. So to continue, I want to kind of make a flat area here where the internal wall meets the facade, and create a kind of flat area that we can then use to start lofting upwards our balcony walls. But to do that, I want to take our 16-sided shape and kind of add some extra sides to it. So basically what I want to do is just kind of take our shape and then kind of add a kind of chamfering here. And then we're gonna delete this. And to do this, we're gonna do like a small bit of Pythagoras. But basically our building is 16-sided, and between two units, if we divide 360 by 16, we should get 22.5. So that angle is here, and it's a little bit thick. And what we want to get is down here. We want to kind of push. We want to kind of chamfer this. So to do that, we need to just create a quick kind of right-angled triangle down here. And what I'm going to do is just go across here. We know this is 90. Up here we have 22.5. So what we're going to have down here, that means is we're going to have 22.5 minus 180 minus 22.5 is going to be this number. So we just kind of do that quickly. It's going to be 180 minus 22.5. And then since we have two triangles here, we're going to divide that by 2. So we got 78.75 and plus 90. And if you can do really fast math, you know that this is going to be 11.25, which is actually half this number up here. All of this is actually, it's not that important, but basically we just wanted to work out what this number is so that we can de-extend our segment here, which we will explode into segments. We're going to take our extend, and some people actually don't know this, but you can de-extend curves as well as extend them. So what we're just to show you that in action, it looks a bit like this. And what we want to do is kind of pull back enough to then create a flat shape here to then continue from for our balcony walls. But we need to know what this number is here, which is our hypotenuse in this case. So basically what I'm gonna do is we're gonna take a division. We're gonna put in 360 and we're gonna divide 360 by our number of segments. This is gonna give us 22.5. We're gonna divide this by 2, and that is our angle right here. And then we're going to create a new variable. And this is going to be for our, let's say this is going to be our balcony wall width. And we'll just leave it at 200. Perfect. And so we're dividing this by 2. I'll just put it in a panel so it's easy to see for you following along. And we're going to copy that because we're dividing by 2 again on this wall width. And that is going to give us our adjacent angle here. Just going to get all this stuff out the way. It's a bit thick. And we'll come down to 2. And what I'm going to do is just make a triangle 90, 90, 11 to 5. What was it? 78. 78, 75. And we know this is 100 because our wall is overall going to be 200. So we divided that by 2. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to use, if you remember from high school, Sakatoa. We're going to be using, we want to find the hypotenuse, and we have the adjacent. So we're going to use ka to find this thing. So we're going to do cos 11 to 5 equals 100 over h. And I think you can rearrange this so that it's like your hypotenuse equals 100 over cos 11 to 5. So what we're going to do is use cosine. And we're going to cosine this. And I work in degrees, so I'm going to put it on degrees. And then we're going to take our adjacent, and then we're going to divide this by this. And yeah, this is our hypotenuse, I believe. And from this, we should now have kind of a 200 mil gap in between to create our internal walls and balcony walls from. All right, so next we're going to just take the endpoints of our shape, and we're gonna just merge them all together, and then we're gonna use this to create a polyline, closed polygon. I'm going to invert the Boolean here so that it turns out true, so that it creates a closed shape. And what is going on here? Not closing correctly. Okay, we're going to graft. Maybe we're going to just graft this up in the right order and shift down. And this should be better list management if you have multiple plane inputs, if you're going to do the multiple towers. And now we should have like a clean polyline that defines our building really nicely. Great. So next we're going to start rotating and pushing upwards our lovely polygons that we've just made, creating this sort of cactus-like shape. And to do this, I'm going to need some new parameters for the floor to floor height. This is sort of top of floor to top of floor. We're going to set that at 3.1 meters. We're also going to need a number of floors. The north Kaktus Tower is 24 floors, and the south one is 20. So we will that in, and then we're also going to need a parameter that controls how many times the balconies turn before they start to turn back on themselves. So a feature of the Kaktus Towers is that the these balconies, they kind of turn this sort of 22.5 degrees, and they do that. They make around 4 jumps with 5 different floor plates, and then they turn back on themselves. And you can see in this illustration that this floor plate is about the same orientation as this one. So in order to recreate this, what we're going to do is create a parameter that says, well, we have 5 floor plates in our turn, so we're going to say 5, and we're going to call this turn amount. And now we have enough to get going. We're going to create a series component. And what we're going to do is start by getting our rotation right. So we know that our unit size is, or angle is 22.5. So we're going to use this as our step size. And what we're going to do is create a repeating pattern that will allow us to rotate the floor plate and then rotate back on itself, going all the way up the building. And we're going to do this for any number of floors. So we've got to keep this sort of flexible. So right now, our count will be 5, and then we will have a nice sequence of numbers leading up to 90. So we know this is right, that the Kaktus Tower does about quarter 90-degree turn and then turns back on itself. So we have the start of our sequence, and what we're going to do next is create the part that turns back on itself. And we're going to do that by using cull index, create a little panel that we're going to make it a multi-line data, and we're going to call the first and last items, which will leave us just this middle part. And we're going to reverse that. And then when we merge these two together, flatten the inputs just to be sure. And what we should have is a repeating pattern going up to 90 and back down again. But we don't include the 0 on the end because we want it to repeat. So that would be our rotation for our balcony modules. And next we want to start moving these floor plates upwards. So to do that, we're going to create a series again. This is a really good way of parametrically creating our floors. And this time our step size will be our floor to floor height. I'm going to put that in the step size. And we know our number of floors is 24. And I'm going to put a +1 in front of that because we have a bottom floor plate and a top ceiling or roof. So we'll add an extra one on, and that should give us 25 numbers that define our floor heights in the building. So now that we have both of these, we want our number of rotations list to be equal to our number of floor heights list. So we're going to use a longest list component, and we're going to plug both of these in. And what you will see now is that our repeating list is repeating, but it's repeating last. So instead of repeating last, what we want is to kind of repeat the whole list. So we're going to use wrap, which repeats the entire list over and over again. So now we have a nice sequence of rotations mimicking the Kaktus Towers. Great. So let's start moving our balconies upwards. What we're gonna do, take both of these. They will serve different functions, as I mentioned before. One is for intersecting to create our balcony walls, zigzagging upwards, and one is to create our actual balcony deck, the larger one. And to show that, we'll turn that one into a surface. We're going to extrude this later to create our entire floor plate. And we're going to take our list of floor heights here, and we're going to plug it into a Z vector, and this will move things upwards in the Z direction. So now we will see, if we go into perspective view, all of our floors moving upwards. And then we're just going to start rotating them. And we're just going to use the plane that we started off with as the sort of axis of the rotation plane. And we'll take both of these. Each can have its own rotation. And change them both to degrees. And plug our repeating degrees list in. We're going to hide this. And we should have balcony floor plates that are rotating in the similar way as the Kaktus Towers does. So this finds our rotations. So next, we're going to extrude our building volume. And if I turn back on my site model, you'll see that I'm just starting from the ground here. What we're gonna do instead is we will, in our input, just kind of move this up a little bit to get it above the green strip in our case. You might not, if you haven't modeled the green strip, you might not see this is relevant, so you could just skip this part. But we will this one's Z offset. And what we're going to do is just push this up a little bit by about, let's say, 13 meters. This will kind of move everything up a little bit. And then from here, I'm going to take this polygon that we made earlier. I'm going to project it just onto our sort of C plane, our world XY. And we're going to add the sort of Z offset here onto the sort of top of the building height. So we take our floor height and our number of floors, and that should be about 74 or 75 meters. And then we add those together to get our total top height of the building. And from our projected polygon, we're going to extrude all the way to the top and create a nice solid. So let's just extrude component, and we'll go up this, and we'll just tap this off. So now we have something that looks like Kaktus Towers. Next, we will create our balcony slabs. And to do that, we're just going to create a new parameter for the slab depth. We'll make it about 300 mil. And what I'm going to do is take those surfaces and simply extrude those. Extrude downwards. And we'll do that by making it negative. Like so. So now that we have something that sort of approximates our building in 3D, we're going to hide everything else. And what we're going to start thinking about is the balconies themselves. So the walls and then the railings. So next we want to create our balcony walls. And so to do this, I'm going to take the shape that we made earlier. I might just start hiding some of these things so they don't get in the way. And then what we're going to do is just explode this. And we're going to take the shorter segments that will be our balcony walls. And to do that, we're going to use a dispatch. And we're going to plug the segment part here into the dispatch. And that means that this in the B should be our smaller balcony wall piece. And what we're going to do next is the midpoint of this. And then we're going to create a line coming away from the building and then extrude up a surface that will we will use to intersect with our intersection balcony curves from earlier. So what I'm going to do is just take this small curve here. I'm going to rotate it. And I'm going to use this midpoint as a rotation axis. And then I'm just going to go rotation by 90 degrees. Make sure you have degrees turned on. And then we should have a line coming up away this way. And then from this, we will create a SDL line that stands for start point, tangent, and length. And this is good for sort of drawing lines with vectors. And what we're going to do is take our midpoint and we're going to draw a big line. Doesn't really matter, it just has to be enough so that it can intersect with the balcony curves. And I'm going to put 12,000 into the length here. And then we're going to use this rotated curve here actually as a vector. And that should get a 12-meter line that's sort of coming away from the building. Clean this up a little bit. So this is to sort of get our balcony walls or sort of partitions. And what I'm going to do next is extrude this curve upwards, and we're going to extrude it by so we're going to get a Z vector here, plugging into our floor to floor height on a number of floors. And what we can do with this is extrude these sort of intersection surfaces upwards. And I might just add a bit extra on the top. I'll take this Z vector that's 74.4 meters. I'm going to add like just 1.2 more just to have a bit of extra tolerance, because we want to make sure that this intersects properly with the balcony curves. And then afterwards, I'm just going to move this down a meter just so that the curve on the bottom intersects properly. So you can just go and we need a negative number, maybe just go by a meter. So now we have some section surfaces. What we're gonna do next is take these curves here, and we want there to be a surface for every curve. We want there to be a surface so that we can get every point along the curve. So what we're going to do is take these surfaces, we're going to group them, and then you should have one group with 16 objects. We're going to take our longest list from earlier, and this time you can use repeat last, that's fine. And then we're going to take our balcony curves, and since we have 25 slabs, we will now have 25 groups here. And if you ungroup these, you should have 25 branches, each with 16 surfaces. And you can see this sort of stronger green color here means that you have many objects overlaid. So next we're going to do a surface curve intersection to get the points at which the balcony wall should be placed. And we're gonna plug surfaces here into our curves, but just make sure to graft curves upwards. They're flattened right now. If we simplify this, you can kind of see that there's 25 branches here, and we want 25 branches of curves. So we grafted here, so we're gonna have 25 branches here. And if everything goes right, you should be able to see a bunch of points now, of sort of intersections. And now this is where we're going to draw our balcony partitions from. And to do that, we'll take these points here. I'm just going to simplify this. So we have 25 lists of 16 points. And what I'm going to do with this is to show you this sort of list structure looks like. So I'm just going to take a tree branch purely for illustration purposes to and I'm going to shift down first, and just to show you that this is sort of one floor, but we kind of want it to go the other way. We want it to go up the building. So what we're going to do is a bit of list management. We're going to go flip last, and from this we have 25 lists of 16 points. And what we're going to do is flip this so that the first index of each branch goes on a list with all the other first indexes. And then the second index will go on a list with all the other second indexes, and so on. So we're going to use flip last. And then now what we should have in the green here, I don't know if it's coming through very well, but now we're going up the way. And we can use this. I'm just going to delete this tree branch. We're going to use this to create a polyline, and we should see our balcony partition sort of going up the way. Now, to create a surface from this, I'm going to loft it to a straight curve on the wall. And to do that, I'm going to clean this up a bit, make it neat and tidy. I'm going to create an SDL line, and that's going to be from this midpoint that we made earlier. And what we want to do is we want to get that building height again. We're going to use this one here, 74.4, that we plugged in earlier to make the intersection surfaces. And I think we can just plug that into the length, and it should get the vector as well. Okay, so now we have a straight curve to loft to. So we have, we just want to graft this so everything's on the right level. So we have, I flattened, make sure you graft. And then from this, what we're going to do is loft together. And everything goes to plan. We should have, and you have to simplify this to make sure so now we have some balcony partition walls. What we're going to do is extrude them to make a kind of 3D object. So I'm going to take an extrude, and we're going to use amplitude this time because we're not going, X, Y, Z. We're going to actually sort of extrude kind of sideways to the plane that the walls were made on. And to do that, we're going to take this sort of smaller curve from earlier that we used to start with, and we're going to use that curve as a vector. So you can just take the directionality of that line and it will become a vector. So we have a vector here, and then what we want to do is create a new parameter, and it's going to be, oh no, we'll just use the balcony wall width from earlier. Yeah, so we'll take that 200 and put that in the amplitude here. And what we should do, oh, I think it didn't graft before. So remember to graft. And we should have some solids now. So we've extruded from the midpoint. So we want to kind of move it back, sort of back into place. You can sort of see here that it's not in the middle, our wall. So what we're going to do, it's quite simple, is have our extrusion, and we're just going to move it. But what we're going to do is just half the vector that we used to extrude it. I'll do that with a panel so you can see clearly. So halving this vector here that we just made. And then we want it to go sort of back the way, not in the same direction. So we're going to make it negative as well. And then from this, we should have a perfectly placed balcony wall. Oh, and is this a capped solid? Yeah, okay, this is a closed wrap. Okay, so that makes our balcony walls. So next we're going to create our balcony railings now that we have our walls. So we will start with taking the polyline we made before that goes up the building, defining the balcony walls, and we will explode this to break it up into the different floors. And from this, I'm gonna evaluate these segments to create our railings. So I'm gonna have a top and bottom, and I'm gonna reparametricize these, which will change the domain from 0 to 1. So we'll have the 0 here, which will be the bottom of our railing. And for the top of our railing, we're going to use division, and we're going to set up some new parameters for the balcony railings. The first we'll say is the balcony height, and that will be 1.2 meters. What we're going to do is divide that number by our floor-to-floor height. And so if we divide the balcony railing height, 1.2, by our floor-to-floor height, 3.1, we get the proportion of the floor that the balcony railing covers in a domain from 0 to 1. So we'll plug this 0.38 into this one, the evaluate curve, and now we will have our top and bottom of the balcony. So next, these will be going sort of up the building, as we created balcony walls that go up the building, and we want them to be going around the building, like you'd imagine a balcony would. And so what we're going to do to get that is, again, we're going to use flip last, and this is going to give us our balcony railing points sort of wrapping around the building this time. And what we will do now is create a polyline from these, and make sure to close it using the invert boolean. And now we have a top and a bottom curve wrapping around the building, creating our sort of cactus style balconies, which are sort of at skewed sort of angles. So next, we'll just group this up, and we're gonna just de-extend these, so that they are not clashing with the wall. And to do this, we're just gonna use our Pythagoras result from earlier, create a little relay here, and just use that in all of the starts and ends here. And oh, we need to explode these first. So remember to do that. So now we'll have our balcony railing starting from our balcony partition wall. Great. So what we'll do now is at the endpoints of each of these, and when we create the railings for the Kaktus Towers, we could just do it for every balcony individually, but this will create a lot of 3D objects in our document and could make our file run very slowly. So what I would recommend doing instead is only creating the unique balconies in 3D and then just orienting them around. This might make your file run a little bit faster, especially once your file gets really big. These optimizations can help a lot. So to do this, we're going to take as a differentiator between the different balcony types on Kaktus Towers. And this is a good practice to get into because you would need to do this anyway to manufacture these components. And as a differentiator, we're gonna use the length of the curve going from the start of each balcony curve, from the bottom of the balcony to the top. And this length will vary throughout the towers because they're on a sort of different angle. And we will have lots of sort of unique numbers with lots of decimals here. And if you have the tree frog package installed, you should be able to create a set from this. If not, I would just download it using the package manager. And what this will do is, if we flatten our input, this will show us all of the unique lengths. So these will represent 12 different types of balcony throughout the towers. And we'll use this to create 12 unique types and orient them down the line. And to do this, I'm going to use the assign paths also from the tree frog package here. And I'm just going to push this down. And we'll use this map here to map all of the curves, our 384 different balconies, 20, 384. And what I'll do is just use this map here to sort those into branches based on their type. Great. So next, now that we have our types, I'm going to start creating some balcony railings. So what I'm going to do now that we have all types set up is I'm going to use a list item to take the first on each branch. And this will be our main type for each of the 12 types that we'll make our balconies from, and then we'll orient this into place later. So now I'll start on the balcony railings, and for this, I'm gonna just start dividing this curve up, and we could just divide this by a count, but this is not very precise. We want to be able to specify, you know, the distance between railings. This might be for code reasons or aesthetic preferences. So for that, I'm going to make a parameter called balcony railing spacing. And let's just go ahead and set that to 200 mil. And what I'm gonna do is use this to divide by the length of these railings. So I'll take the length of the railing and I'll divide it by 200. And this will give me a number. This will give me a floating point number. And in order to put it into the divide curve, I need it to be an integer. So a whole number, a round number. I'm gonna use round, and I'm gonna round this to get it as an integer. And now we should have a balcony with railing divisions that are approximately 200, but it will probably be, you know, 199 or 201. You know, it won't be exact, but it will sort of look similar throughout the design. And next, we're going to just apply that divide curve to the bottom as well. And now that we have those, we can merge and create railings. And to do this, you're going to need to graft these together so that we have two points on each branch, and set up a polyline so that we create the railings. And now that that is done, I'm going to just extend these railings a little bit downwards, just so that they go into sort of the balcony deck. This model is sort of just for visualization purposes, sort of level of detail level 100 or so. This is not a construction document drawing. So we just don't want it to be obvious that our railing doesn't meet the balcony deck sort of improperly. So we're just going to extend this downwards by 3 centimeters, just so it sort of goes under the balcony deck, and not worry about it too much. And once we've done that, we'll shift this down as we had grafted earlier. And we should have 12 branches with all of our balcony railings on. Great. And before we turn them into 3D objects, we're going to just add a top railing by merging these together. We have top of the railing and then the vertical elements here merge together, and just make sure we simplify both of the inputs just so they all merge correctly. Great. And now that we have a balcony framework, we're going to use the pipe component to give them a 3D thickness. And I'm going to hide all this stuff here. And to do this, I'm going to set up a balcony railing thickness. Nice. And we'll just make that 25 for the radius. So about 50 in the thickness. It's illustrative right now. And this will give us... oh, and I think one thing I forgot to do is cut out the first and last railing. And we're going to do this by just before we... Back when we have our points up here, what we'll do is just call index and just create a multi-line data panel like we did earlier, and go 0 and -1. The -1 means that we get the last element of the branch without necessarily knowing what index it's at, so that's a useful thing to know. And we will plug that in here, do it for the top as well. And I'm just going to lock before I do this, just as good hygiene. And we should have our railings starting with a space between the wall. So now that we have our balconies, I'm going to just hide all of this, and we will use the bottom curve that we used to create our balconies to create a plane, which we will use to orient them into the place of all of their sort of respective types. So to do that, I'm going to take the midpoint, and then I'm going to construct a plane of the midpoint into the origin, and then we're gonna make a plane that's sort of flat against each facet of the building, and we're gonna do that by just putting a z vector into the y, so it's always gonna be going upwards. And we'll just put a relay on this, and we'll also use this curve as a vector for the x axis of the plane. So this will allow us to orient all of our types into place, and we will also use a list item to get our starting point, orienting these into place. Now we have our plane set up. I'm just gonna, I'll just clean up this, and what I'm gonna do with these pipes is I think I'm just gonna turn them into a mesh, make them a bit more lightweight, and so mesh brep, going from brep to mesh, and then I'm gonna mesh join them. And then we'll have 12 balcony meshes. And with this, I am going to orient, move all our types into place. This will be our geometry that we are orienting. The list item is the sort of main type, the master type's kind of orientation. So we'll use the list item to get that orientation, and we'll put that in the A. So this is where the orientation starts. And we will use our list of planes, larger list of planes, as the endpoint. And we have, we have some list management issues. So the pipe shifts things up a bit. So we need to shift back down again to get all of our railings onto one level. So this means that the whole balcony itself will be just one mesh. Just make sure that they're all going in as one branch here. So that will be our balconies. So now that we have all the main geometry of the building kind of ready, I'm just gonna set up some visualization components. We'll get a custom preview, and we'll set it up in gray or white, just for kind of classic architecture, Arctic view sort of presentation. And I'll just copy everything we've been making and put it all in. And then we'll just hide everything in red. And that is the Kaktus Towers. Albeit at a, lower level of detail. So we'll just group everything up. And maybe I'll find a way that I can share the script or something. But here we go. Pretty good. Thank you so much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please subscribe for the next one. And if you are interested in videos on more broader topics within architecture and urbanism, please check out my other channel, It's Time to Build. I will leave a link here. And other than that, have a great day, and I will see you in the next one.